2022. So as we begin this year, I want to just first of all thank our Honorable Mayor, Mayor LaToya Cantrell, for her continued and unwavering support of this police department and keeping public safety a top priority for our city. I want to thank the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department for all that they do day in and day out, putting their lives on the line to ensure the safety of our citizens. We as a department, we as a city experienced a 7% decrease overall in crime, 7% decrease overall in crime in 2021. Violent crime was up 7%, and property crime was down 11%. Again, with the violent crime, as I've been saying throughout the year 2021, nothing unique to just New Orleans. This is across the country. We have seen this uptick in violent crime, but I still firmly believe that we're in a much better place than some cities that we have seen across the country. And that is due to the hard work of the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department. We finished 2021 with 218 murders, which is an 8% increase over 2020, with a solve rate of 53%. But we also had 20 indictments throughout 2020 to hold violent offenders accountable. And after a thorough review of many cases, we do understand the importance of reviewing some of our cold cases and ensuring of bringing justice, seeking justice on behalf of the loved ones of our victims. We've solved 17 cold cases in the year of 2021. That is more than what we've solved in the last 3 years collectively. So I'm very proud of the men and women in our cold case division because they put their heart and soul into ensuring that we are able to bring some sort of justice to the family members of our victims. In working to learn why many of these cases, crimes are occurring last year, we were able to determine several motives, some being road rage that we're not used to seeing, neighborhood feuds, drugs, as well as domestic violence. You know, again, as I've said before, I am no medical expert, but I firmly believe that stress has played its part in a lot of the cases that we have seen, of violent incidents that we have seen over 2021. And of course, as a result of that, this is a trend that we've identified, but this is due to the inability of individuals being able to peacefully resolve their matters. We've also experienced a 7% increase in shootings in 2021 compared to 2020, and an 8% decrease in armed robberies in 2021. We had a recent rash of carjackings towards the latter part of 2021, but yes, we did see a decrease in armed robberies and a 1% increase in carjackings. Also in 2021, we took as many as 2,066 guns off the streets of New Orleans throughout 2021. And that is in comparison to 1,165 guns that were taken off the streets in 2020. We started 2021 with 1,186 officers, and we've lost as many as 150 this past year, while hiring 44. So retention and recruitment remains a constant challenge, but also remains a constant priority for us as a department. Again, nothing unique to New Orleans. Is more or less an issue with the profession, and this is why I ask you, the community, our business community, our faith-based community, I ask everyone to help us lift up the morale within our profession again and letting everyone know that this is, in fact, an honorable profession, more specifically here in New Orleans, who serve our citizens through constitutional policing. There were approximately 7 officer-involved shootings in 2021 compared to 9 in 2020, none of which ended or resulted in a fatality. So we're very grateful for that. While we would never, ever want to have that kind of encounter with anyone, we had 7 of them, and none of them resulted in any type of fatality. 2021 was not without its sets of challenges for our department. Global pandemic, we know about that. We're all hands on deck during a Category 4 hurricane. And while our officers were protecting and saving our city and serving our city, we as a department, as citizens of our community found ourselves trying to patch up our roofs and get our homes together while continuing to do our job just as everyone else. We lost 3 officers in 2020 to COVID, and luckily we have not lost any in 2021. But we were not immune to senseless violence within our department. This past August, we lost a dear member of our police department, Detective Everett Briscoe, who was in Houston with Mr. DJ Rickoffrey and his friends when he became victim to a senseless violent act. And of course, that struck the heart of our department. But nevertheless, we stood strong. And as I've said before, this is not anything unique to New Orleans. Across the country, we've seen these violent acts, and we've seen them not just through our profession, but through personal losses as well. NOPD remains engaged and prepared to meet the continuing and new challenges of 2022. Again, I commend the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department for their professionalism and their dedication to our community. We have leveraged our resources working across several districts, parishes, citywide to arrest groups responsible for several carjackings, auto thefts, armed robberies, and shootings. The criminals who do not necessarily recognize parish lines, but we know there are parish lines, but we work collectively with our partners surrounding the state, or around the state. We're looking forward into 2022. Our investigative partnerships with our federal and state partners through VCAPE have showed significant results. I want to thank all of our agencies, all of our partnering agencies for their cooperation and crime-fighting efforts. Over the summer, we expected a large spike in violent crime throughout the summer. You recall, May of 2021, we were at a 37% increase in violent crime. We enacted Operation Golden Eagle, which was a partnership with our state police as well as our federal partners. And in doing so, during that 3-month operation, we arrested 91 individuals, took 69 guns off the street, and 7 federal indictments. And we saw a decrease in homicide for all 3 months in a month-to-month comparison. So as we move forward into 2022, we've also made several arrests within this last week for armed robberies or carjacking. So we remain engaged. We're going to carry that momentum from 2021 into 2022. But we will need our criminal justice system to do its part in holding these individuals accountable. We should not only be making arrests, we should also be keeping these violent individuals behind bars and holding them accountable. So in the coming year, I will continue to do my assessment and evaluation of our department's efficiency to determine if best practices are followed and if changes are necessary. But we fully intend to remain engaged in our efforts to reduce violent crime and sustain the reforms that we have made over the last several years, as this will be a permanent guide on how we operate here at the New Orleans Police Department. We will continue to build on strategic partnerships we talked about so much this year and ensure our officers have the resources that are needed to do their jobs. Excuse me. Thinking about what else was accomplished in 2021, we gave a captain's test. First time we've given a captain's test since 2004. We revamped our promotional process. We've also received funding from, thanks to the mayor as well as thanks to the council, to promote as many as 160 police officers to senior police officers. So that goes towards building the morale and making the right investments into our department. Most importantly, we will continue to deepen our trust and relationship with our community by maintaining and strengthening our community engagement. That trust will expand and our partnerships will grow. So I want to thank the community for the continued support of the New Orleans Police Department. As we have consistently said, we cannot do this by ourselves. The community has to take a personal responsibility and interest in what it is that we are doing if we want to make our city safer. I want to, again, speak to Mr. Alfred Grove. It was 1 year ago today that he turned his son in. And as difficult as that was for him, to turn his son in for a senseless act that he committed or he's accused of committing. And we need more parents like that to come forward. It is difficult to hold your child accountable, but it is even more difficult if you're going to condone such violent behavior. So I want to thank Mr. Grow, and I ask that many parents look at what he did, although it was very difficult. So these remain some challenging times for law enforcement. Our profession, yes, is under scrutiny, and with the support of our department, we will continue to face these challenges and move forward. And with that, I'll answer any questions that anyone may have.
Hey, Chief. Sure, Chief. You mentioned before, and you mentioned again today about the national trends of violent crime and them increasing, and that is not unique to New Orleans. But are there unique trends to the city itself?
I mean, what we've seen here is what we've seen across the country, honestly. The homicides, uptick, that 8% increase in homicides. We've seen it much worse in other municipalities, but unique to New Orleans, more or less, what we're not seeing is the accountability. That is what is unique to New Orleans. The accountability of these violent offenders being held accountable for their actions. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chief. My name is Chris Lawrence, President Against the Forces of All Evil. I feel like the crowd is coming from criminal court and the district attorney's office. Juveniles. I feel like the press, under the Information Act, under Congress, should have access to juvenile records. I feel like it's time to prosecute all juveniles as adults. I feel like it's time to use lethal injection for killers.
Sir, do you have a question?
I just want to know how you feel about prosecuting juveniles as adults right now.
I think that has to be done on a case-by-case basis. You know, I can't say that every child, because, you know, children, they know right from wrong, and there are some cases in which they've made a mistake because they may not have fully, their brain may not have fully matured. But when you're speaking of a violent act, I think we have to take some serious consideration as to how they are being held accountable.
Second question. You feel like if a juvenile gets a second arrest for a violent crime, shouldn't he be denied bail? Because once this juvenile is out on bail, he's going to go commit another armed robbery, another carjacking.
I would say this. Well, what happens is, I think you have to, again, that has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis, looking at the circumstances in which this child is being released into. Are they being released into the same situation in which they were in before, which means they may ultimately be recidivizing or committing the crime again? Yeah, we have to take some consideration into that. No, that's it. We're going to move more than that's it. Any other? Natasha?
So, Chief, you talked about Operation Golden Eagle and the success of that last year. Any thoughts of having yet another operation like that since it worked so well last year in 2022?
Absolutely. One thing I can say when it comes to our state and federal partners, when they can assist, they do assist. We work with them on a daily basis already through VCATE and the successes that we've been able to obtain through those particular initiatives or groups. But yes, major operations like this, we are absolutely looking forward to trying to do more of them. But again, it goes to the capacity of our resources as well as theirs at the state and federal level. That's why it's best that we try to use these resources collectively to get more results.
Chief, I wanted to ask you about a couple of high-profile cases that we had recently here, starting with the death of 12-year-old Derek Cash. He was found overall an issue on Monday. We know that the vehicle that he was found dead next to had been involved in a number of crimes over the past weekend. Is there anything you can tell us about that, and whether the NOPD is looking at a connection between those crimes involving the black Jeep with Texas license plates and the young man?
So that is an ongoing investigation. That's a part of our ongoing investigation with regards to what this vehicle was involved in throughout the weekend. But I can't necessarily speak to whether or not that vehicle had anything to do with that 12-year-old victim at that location. That is still a part of our investigation, and I would encourage anyone who may have information about that to please contact our homicide at 658-5300 or Crime Stoppers anonymously at 822-1111. But we really have not, to answer your question, Paul, we have not made that connection with regards to the vehicle and the deceased victim. But what we are looking at is what this vehicle may have been involved in prior to, up until the moment that this kid was found deceased.
It looked like it was involved in a number of auto thefts and at least one carjacking. Is that correct?
That's a part of our investigation now. We're still trying to determine everything. I can't speak specifically as to what it was involved in just yet, but we are backtracking that vehicle to determine what it may have been involved in.
The second question I had was about the 7-year-old
Mm-hmm.
Dylan. It looks like it was a case of mistaken identity where there was maybe some neighborhood beefing going on and her car was shot into. What can you tell us about that?
That has not been determined just yet. I mean, as a part of our investigation, we have received some information that alludes to that, but we have not been able to specifically connect that and say with certainty that this was a mistaken identity. That's still an ongoing investigation. And unfortunately, tomorrow, they will be laying Miss Dillon to rest tomorrow morning. I plan to be there with the family as I have been over the last week or two.
Does it appear that her mother was a target or was...
We don't know. We honestly do not know if the mother, the vehicle, I would hope that Dylan was not the intended target, but that is a part of our investigation.
Chief, one of the things you had said in a previous news conference is that you were very concerned, this was last year, very concerned about the carjackings that were happening.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing them happen again in the new year. I know that arrests had been made. What can you tell us about this ongoing crime that seems to be
Mm-hmm.
striking really all over the city?
What I can say is, because I have received this question on many occasions with regards to, is there a bigger picture to this? Are there individuals soliciting these groups of individuals to do this? We have not been able to determine that. What I can say also, the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department has been working relentlessly. They found a group that was from out of state that committed several armed robberies just last week, a second group over this last weekend, and a third group weekend prior. And it appears as though these are different groups that do not have any specific connection to one another. And in some cases, we've even identified some juveniles to be arrested that had no prior arrest history. So we're looking at something that is, I don't know if it's a video game. Again, I've said this before. I don't know if this is a video game, Grand Theft Auto, they're playing in real life, but we're starting to see kids, young adults, commit these crimes that are not necessarily in groups that are not necessarily connected to anyone else.
A mixture of adults and juveniles?
Mixture of young adults and, yes, and juveniles. We just had a tandem of a male and female arrested over the last 2-3 days for 3 incidents that occurred just this week.
Last question. Yeah, please, can you give us some information on the man that turned himself in concerning the police officer that was assaulted by him on Harrison Avenue?
He's under arrest. Fortunately and luckily, our officer is doing fine. He has to go through his process with regards to being booked with battery on a police officer. What led him to do what he did, we have absolutely no idea, but I am grateful that our officers responded the way in which they did, and no one was seriously injured, although our officer was injured. But right now, he has to go through his process. I really don't have much more to say to that.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you all. What you see? You got it? Thank you.